Top voice on the show this week, Stephen Vaughn joins me. He's an American lawyer, former general counsel to the U.S. Trade Representative, acted as an acting trade representative as well. Mr. Vaughn, thanks so much for speaking to me. Let me start by asking you the fact that the trade reps met today, setting the stage for a possible round of trade talks. How big are you in terms of the optimism that many are having that maybe those trade talks will continue soon?
I think it's always good to have the trade reps talk to each other, and I think that I think it's all the news from both countries appears to be positive right now. President Trump and Mr. Modi have been exchanging compliments, so it seems to be moving in a good direction, and I'm sure that means that the trade reps are seeing some progress.
Okay, yes, the two leaders have exchanged greetings, but there's been a fair bit of flip-flop. Before I come to any of that, as far as the trade aspect is concerned, how big a deal breaker do you think corn and soya bean is? Because that's exactly what the Americans are saying, that why isn't India buying a bushel of corn from America? But India has its reservations with regards to GM crops.
So I think that, obviously, if you want to have a good trade deal with the United States, I think it's important that you show a willingness to buy U.S. agricultural goods. And to the extent that country is not willing to buy U.S. agricultural goods, that's gonna make it harder. I mean, the Americans have very little patience with this line of argument. They've been very angry and frustrated about it for a very long time. And so I think it is gonna lead to a challenge. We make some of the best agricultural products in the world, and we don't like seeing trade barriers against them.
So what you're saying is it's actually going to be a deal breaker, in fact. Okay, then let me ask from you that what's the view like in DC? Why is it that India's repeated comments about pointing out that it's not the only one that's buying Russian energy hasn't really hit home? Why is it that there are only India-specific 50% tariffs for buying Russian energy?
I don't think that's the right way to think about it. I mean, I think the right way to think about it is that the president looks at each relationship and is making a decision on a country by country basis. So with respect to China, we put more sanctions and tariffs on China than we have on anybody else, and more sanctions on China than anybody else has put on them. So I think we've been very tough on China. I think in terms of the Europeans, the president obviously had a lot of tariffs for the EU as well, and they eventually came to the table and made a deal. And India had the same. He told everybody about the August 1st deadline, and some countries met the deadline, and some countries didn't meet the deadline. So I think each country is sort of being judged on its own basis, and I think I don't think I don't think it's a good idea to say, well, because you did this for this country, you should do the same thing for us, or because we're in the same position. It's not a question of kind of this comparison or that comparison. It's a question of how the president sees the overall relationship. And I think he's expressed grave concerns about the situation with Russia. And you're hearing him tell the Europeans right now that he's willing to do more vis-a-vis Russia and China if the Europeans are willing to do the same. So I think that, I think India should really, I don't think it's going to be a good idea for India to constantly be bringing up other countries. I think India needs to understand that the U.S. has certain questions and issues for India, and they should be negotiating on that basis.
Okay, if those negotiations were to only be on India-specific issues, how soon before you think possibly a limited trade deal may come by to at least get some of the those issues on which there is mutual agreement out of the way?
I mean, first of all, in terms of when talks can start and when they would end, I mean, that's all ultimately just going to be driven by the two governments. I mean, the trade ministers are prepared, I'm sure, to start talks at any time. And so I think it's just a question of, I think at this point you have very, very sophisticated people on both sides. They know what the issues are for the most part. And these are really political questions in terms of when the two governments are ready to make a deal. Is the deal likely to be a limited deal? I mean, if you look at the model, for example, that USTR negotiated with the EU, that's exactly what they did. They said, we're going to resolve certain issues, and then other issues like the digital services tax or some of the other issues that we're concerned about, we're going to negotiate those later. So I I could very much see the deal with India looking like that.
All right, Mr. Vaughn, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks much for joining me. Let's hope that at least a limited trade deal actually gets done at the very earliest.